Well, hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for the adult table today. Really quickly, just wanted to continue our series where we're talking to various experts in their field and helping us as we're navigating this new normal as church, as individuals, as families. And obviously, this last week was a big week for us as a family, but also in Springfield. It was a big week because the Springfield Public Schools went back to school at home. And so I know that there's a lot of anxiety as part of that. How are we going to get all things done? And even for us, this was a difficult kind of transition to get back in the groove, except on top of both of us working full-time from home, now we're also going to be a part of the education process with our kids. And so that's a tough balance to strike. And so I know a lot of us are kind of trying to figure out that new normal again with our family. And so we just reached out to an expert, an absolute legend in the field is what I will say. Courtney Dameron is the Springfield Public Schools Teacher of the Year, the reigning Teacher of the Year. Is that the proper term?
My reign of terror is almost over. We are working on getting the next Teacher of the Year ready to go for next year. So it's almost done.
Okay. So still the reigning SPS Teacher of the Year. And also I have it in my head that you're the Regional Teacher of the Year as well. Is that accurate?
I am one of 3 Regional Teachers of the Year.
Okay. Awesome. We'll just consider you the Regional Teacher of the Year as well. But also on top of teaching, there's the parenting side of it. And you're the parent of 2 girls. Mm-hmm. And so you're going through this same balance of the parenting side and walking through that with your kids, but then on top of that, doing the teaching side of it. And so it just seemed like you were the perfect fit for kind of helping some of our parents to work through some of the dynamics that maybe they've not previously been presented with. So thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for taking the time. Obviously, you could be teaching right now, you could be parenting right now, but you have decided to invest in the people of praise and anybody else who might benefit from it. And so thank you, truly thank you from the bottom of our hearts. I'm going to let Liz take the first question.
I really was just going to start by asking you, how did it go last week?
It went all right. Every day was a new adventure, especially on the mom side of it. I had honestly a little bit lower expectations of what the elementary side would be doing. And like most parents, when I got the schedules and the conference call times, I was kind of put aback by it just a little bit. Each section of SPS is doing things differently. Elementary versus middle school versus high school. As a whole, they're united, but each one of those different segments is really doing things a lot different. So when I saw what my 2 elementary students were doing, I have a 2nd grader and a 4th grader. It was a little bit of a challenge for me at first because I was like, all right, well, I'm going to have to be working at home doing this at the same time. But it went well. We figured it out. I'm sure like most families that, that first conference at 9:00 on Monday morning, there were many people in the house crying, but it's okay. We all figured it out.
Right. Well, and that's just a part of it. And I think it was actually Liz and me crying on our side. Less than the kids. So it went well on the parenting side of it. How about on the teaching side of it?
On the teaching side, it was a challenge. One of the requirements that SPS had that was a little daunting at first, but when I started to get into it, I really enjoyed, was we called every single one of our 25,000 students in SPS, and SPS wanted 100% feedback, that every kid had someone that they got to talk to. So my part was about 12 students that I got to call, and I was a little nervous about it at first. I'm not big on making parent phone calls. That's kind of a thing I don't really enjoy doing, but these were positive phone calls. I just got to call and talk to each one of them and ask if they had any questions, if there was anything I could do. We made sure that every parent and family knew that we have free meals available Monday through Friday. We wanted to see if they had Chromebook, if they had Wi-Fi connection. And then the students we didn't get to, they sent them to their houses. So there was a team of teachers who were brave and went out and started knocking on doors. So that was that was interesting. That was something I didn't expect that they would want us to do, but was great. And the feedback I got was that the parents were so happy to be able to talk to a person and ask them all the questions from all the emails. So that was the first challenge that ended up being something really, really great that I was nervous about. The second challenge was making sure that all of our teachers at Hillcrest especially knew how this whole Canvas thing worked. We've been one-to-one, which what we call it, for 5 years now. And it's never been a requirement for the teachers to use Canvas. It was a tool that we could use if we needed to. So there were a lot of teachers who had used it every now and then as a tool, but they weren't somebody who necessarily knew how to just pop right on and get everything going. So that week before SBS at Home week was crazy busy because I am somewhat of an expert in a sense, and I was on the phone with teachers all week. I was doing online trainings, and honestly, I was a lot worried for our students, and I wanted them to know that we were getting ready for them. So I made a video of like a welcome back video with all the teachers' faces because I knew they'd want to see our faces, and I was making tutorials for students and tutorials for teachers. So that was super busy. So the week of SBS at Home when it started, I honestly, teaching wise, I was just trying to connect to my kids, but as a colleague, I spent a lot of time helping teachers get their Canvas and stuff going, and this is how you set this up. So I was teaching teachers, teaching students, and teaching my own kids at the same time.
So anyways, just a great story that we had. Friday was Asher's birthday. He was really looking forward to doing that along with his friends at school. And then because of everything and how it worked out, he was unable to get his typical birthday bag, which is what he gets every time, or everybody gets when they have a birthday at school. And so he was really disappointed about that. And he mentioned that to me. And so but he wanted to get on just to say hello to everybody. And so he got on it, and then Mrs. Carr actually said, "Hey, Asher, do you mind just kind of stepping out and going to your mailbox?" And we had checked the mail late the night before, and so I was like, there's nothing in the mailbox, but I thought she wouldn't have asked him unless she knew. And I'm walking out, so I just recorded him. And he walked out there, and he saw that bag, and it was everything. It was awesome. Later on, I found out that Mrs. Carr actually lives in Nixa, and we live in Fair Grove. So she had driven probably 40 minutes, maybe more, in order to do that for my son. Just really blew my mind. Yeah. And of course, Asher was so thankful for it as well. So just an incredible story of a teacher going above and beyond. And we're so thankful for our teachers. Is there any stories that you've had even from this last week, or anything in particular that you would just say, this was really cool?
I also run the social media pages that we have for Hillcrest, and it's been a great way to connect with students to see what kind of needs and things that they have. So we have, Instagram has a neat thing on their stories where it's like, what questions do you have? The kids can kind of answer. So it's kids I don't actually have in my classes personally. It's all the Hillcrest students that follow it. And one of the questions we asked was, how did your week go? Was it awesome, or did you struggle? And every kid that responded, I struggled, through Instagram that's open, I was able to message each one of those kids and say, hey, how can we make this week better for you? And one of the students that replied was a former student of mine. Didn't have her this year, but I've had her 2 years before, so I can't interact with her on campus, if that makes sense, because she's not currently enrolled. So I knew she was, and she just kind of said that she was struggling this week because she's what she described as a full-time big sister. And she was struggling keeping her 4-year-old little sister and her 15-year-old little sister on task. And also she'd been laid off, and she's one of the primary income providers in her family, and she was unable to work. And she just kind of confided in me that she was just really struggling with this new normal of having to be her 4-year-old's teacher, basically, her 4-year-old sister. So I just kind of said, what do you need? What can I do? Because she's currently living in a hotel, and she's brave enough to say, here's what I need. A lot of people will say, I'm fine. But she was like, okay, here we go. So she said that she just wanted things to be able to play with her sister with, and that she needed a few hygiene items. And I was able to, through the help of many friends, get a little bit of stuff together. I didn't want to overwhelm her, because people who are living in those types of situations, they don't need a lot of stuff. So we went for the basics of what she needed, and I met her over at the Hillcrest parking lot and just did a quick exchange and got to say hello to little sister and gave her some of the things that she needed to be that big sister that she wanted to be, but also give her a little bit of time so that she could be the student she wanted to be. So that was a great experience. And that's not like a look at me type of a thing, but that's just to tell you what teachers are doing behind the scenes, of the things that we're able to help our students with and the things that they're struggling with. Like our kids are able to go into their rooms and get on their computers and quietly get onto their Wi-Fi and get their work done. But for a lot of kids, this is a struggle to be able to find the time to be able to get this kind of stuff done.
Right. So on that side of it, with trying to figure out a good way to get everything accomplished that need to be accomplished and decreasing stress, are there any tips or tricks or anything from both the parenting side and maybe teaching side that you would recommend for parents that are kind of walking through this? Maybe some have already pulled out a chunk or more of their hair, but just to kind of help them navigate this. Is there any kind of advice or direction you would give?
The best part about virtual learning is the flexibility with that. And I think especially our elementary students are really struggling with flexibility, that they are used to, this is when I'm told to do it and this is when I'm going to do it. And I can't do it past 3 o'clock because that's not when school is. I've been struggling with that with my own kids. And so the biggest advice I would have that I'm doing as a parent is take a break. If you're struggling with something and you don't understand and you're like, I want to talk to my teacher, let's just stop for a second. Let's go outside. Let's go for a walk. Even if you do have a conference that's scheduled at 11 o'clock, your teacher is going to understand if your student doesn't show up at that time. Mm-hmm. Nobody's taking attendance. The teachers aren't sitting there writing down which kids are there and which kids are not. So take that time to do what is best for your kid and don't make them think they have to be in that seated classroom anymore, that this is stressing everybody out. And it's okay to take a brain break, as we call it in the education realm. It's okay for them to miss one of those conferences. It's okay if they don't get all of their English or their writing prompt finished. It's okay for them to work on it at 6 o'clock at night if they need to, not to go all day, but just to really do the flexibility part of that. And with the middle school and high school students, it's the same thing. A lot of the students are struggling with, they want to be on from 8 to 3 every day, and they want their Monday classes and their Wednesday classes. And we're like, we're not doing it that way anymore. We're going to give it all to you at once in a big chunk, and whatever is comfortable for you, you get that finished. The opposite, what's happening I'm finding with my high school students, is I'm getting things turned in at 3 a.m., 2 a.m. So I'm comparing them to newborn babies. They have their nights and their days mixed up. So as parents of middle and high school students, I really suggest that you check in on them and you encourage them to get up before noon. I mean, if they want to sleep in, that's great, but get up before noon. Let's get up at 10 and let's do what we need to do before we do what we want to do. That's a big phrase in my house and in my classroom. So to get their work finished, and then if they want to, play video games and that kind of stuff, that they can. But I'm really concerned about the amount of kids who are turning their work in at midnight, 1 a.m. Like you need to turn that in a little bit earlier. Like it doesn't bother me. I get it no matter what, but I just really don't want them, when we do eventually go back, for these kids to just be out of their minds tired, and they're not turning in their best work at 1 a.m., like that's also, when you're tired, of course they're not tired because that's their daytime, but when you're tired, that's going to cause you to have more stress and more anxiety. And if you have a question and you ask your teacher via Canvas at 1 a.m., I'm not going to answer you back until 8. So you're going to have to sit there and you're going to struggle. So as teachers, we're required to have a certain amount of conference time where we are saying, we are in front of this computer, and if you message me, I'm going to message you right back. And I'm not going to do that at 1 a.m. Right. So the students need to be cognizant of that.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. So that's obviously something that the parents of teenagers can help you with. But if you were just going to say one thing for any parent of an SBS student, or really a parent of any school in the area that is doing the online learning stuff, if you were going to give us one inside look at how can we help support our teachers, what would that one thing be?
I would say give us a little bit of grace. And on your end, this is more, I'm kind of a practical gal. So one practical thing that I've been trying to push out on our social media and on my personal page, if you're overwhelmed by the amount of times that Canvas is emailing you, okay, I know that's a big deal, especially if you have multiple children. You have control over that. You can log in on your parent login on Canvas. And if you don't know what it is, there is a phone number. I think it's 523-0417. You can look that up on SBS if you need to. And you can go into your settings and you can turn off all of those notifications and you can just set the ones that you need. And that's a practical advice that maybe will take down your stress a little bit. But more of a holistic advice would be to take a break, to go outside, to make sure that your kids know that everybody is struggling. And if something's not right, if the teacher didn't do something right, we're figuring this out as well. So if the conference is supposed to start at 11, or if the link is supposed to be there and it's not there, let's try to be kind to the teachers, especially in front of our children. Oh, I guess it just isn't working. Maybe their online stuff isn't working. Their Wi-Fi is out. Let's try again later, instead of this dialogue of, oh, your teacher, like we're all trying to figure this out together.
Yeah, so good. And a little convicting for me. The first day was like, oh, those messages were just through the roof. And I was like, there was stress that I was handing off to the kids, and I caught that. And then I'm on Facebook and I see Courtney post about it, and then I'm like, oh man, now I really feel bad. But so good and practical, and realistic, and everything.
We don't realize that it sends that out. Like when I'm putting an assignment out or an announcement, there's no button that says email every parent. It just automatically does that. Okay, so I wanted parents to know that we weren't trying to drive them crazy. And I didn't even know it did it. When I started getting them, I was like, they don't know. Like, they don't know that I'm getting one from art and from PE and from counseling and from the library. I'm like, we've got to stop this.
Well, it has been a learning experience for all of us, and I'm sure on the teaching side of it as well. And I have no doubt, I really truly believe that all of this is going to end up working out even for the good, for our kids, for our family, for our relationships between parents and teachers teachers and kids. I'm seeing so much good even come from what is obviously just a terrible situation. And so thank you for your part in that. And thank you as a teacher and as a parent, taking the time to kind of walk other parents through what this should look like, or what it can look like, and how we could walk through this with grace. So thank you so much for taking the time, and we really, really appreciate you. You're a blessing.
No problem. Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye. Bye.